was gonna see how long I could just go on the stream without saying anything and just see what you guys all did. But Rob just killed that immediately. He's just so giddy. He's just so happy to be here.
I'm just doing my job, buddy.
And damn it, Chris, how long has it been? How long have you been avoiding us now? About what, 4 months?
Something like that. Yeah, got along with it. Got away with it for a while.
Yeah, what's going on? You don't like us anymore?
No, just busy with non-pool things, mate. But now it's the new year and like the tours started again. I've started practicing again, so start talking to you for a little bit until I get bored again.
Yeah, I was thinking it was like Ray or something. Like you didn't like Ray, so you just decide, well, fine. If Ray's going to be on the show, I'm leaving. I don't want to be a part of this. All right. Well, we got Ray and we got Demetrius here too. So Ray, how's it going?
Fantastic. How are you? Actually, just recovering from some whatever bug going around, but feeling a lot better. So things are good.
Demetrius?
And I'm just happy to be here. Doing great.
Did you come back with the Turning Stone flu or anything?
No, I dodged all that. Nothing but roses and sunshine.
Well, perfect. Well, let's jumped right into the podcast. Last week we could have talked about Turning Stone, but we didn't. And part of it is because we wanted to have you on, Demetrius, because you were there. So I guess you've been to how many Turning Stones have you played in now? You think?
Yeah, maybe 5 or 6. Which I've been. It's a good tournament. I think, unfortunately, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get out there in August because apparently it filled up like within a day or two of when the last one. I mean, it's already full for August. But I know that they're doing, maybe I'll see Raymond down in Florida because I know they're doing some new Florida tour with 10 ball in one pocket. And there's a big season finale 10 ball down in Florida that weekend. So if I can't get into Turning Stone, I'll probably just go to the Florida event and it sounds fine. But yeah, it's a bummer. It's the hardest problem with Turning Stone is its popularity. It's hard to get in.
Yeah. Well,
I watched you play a little bit,
go?
Demetrius.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I've kind of been on a bad run, just in terms of variance. Like I've played Fed. I ran into Federer on the winter side, which is the second Turning Stone, and I mean that happened last January too, which he's really tough. I was that match is on YouTube. Federer put it on his channel. Raced a 9. I mean, I was real tight. He's a great player. He came out strong. I came out weak. I get down 5-0. And then I kind of go into that, not give up stroke, but like kind of all the pressure's over. And so then I kind of rally back and from 5-0 down, I kind of made it into a set. I actually played pretty well from there and got it to where it was like 7-4 or 6-4. And then I ran somehow he got up like 7-5 and I ran a rack or two and got it to 7-6. And then I broke in 4 balls and just had this 3-9 combo that it was torn whether I should go for it or play safe. And anyway, long story short, I missed the 3-9. He runs out the last 2 racks, beats me 9-6. I played a good set. It was a fun match, but it was too little, too late. And then the problem is on the B side. I got in the money. I won my next match to get in the money, which was not actually that easy. But then first round in the money, I had to play my road partner Jesse Engel, and that's the second time. Last tournament, last August, we at Turning Stone.
Always play him.
Well, we were both in 25th place, and we played each other last tournament as well. This tournament, same story. We're in 25th place on the B side, playing each other first round, and I just bowed out and let him go on. And then he lost to Billy Thorpe 9-8 in kind of a heartbreaker. So pretty poor tournament. So it's the second tournament in a row where I feel like I just didn't really get a lot of play because, and not to say I can't take a set off Federer now and then, but really it's as close as you can come to drawing you're kicked out of the tournament card. And so it's fine. It's fine. It's just, it's tough. I go out there and I watch other people play sets against people where they get to play guys that make mistakes and they get 2 sets. They have to get beat 2 sets. Me, I keep running into Jesse and Federer, and it just feels like I get 1 set or 0. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So my personal tournament was kind of lackluster. I think the hard part for me, I started off pretty rough trying to get the table conditions. It was so new and slidey. And I mean, every time I go play on brand new cloth, it takes me a set. It took me a little too long to adjust the equipment. You'd think I'd figure it out by now, but anyway, but other than that, one thing I will say is that because I've played the event enough times, I've gotten much more comfortable. So like the first time or two I was out there, it was like, ooh, I'm playing in a pro tournament, and I was nervous and I'm tight and stuff. But it's almost like people sometimes ask, like, how do I play in big events like I play in my home practice room? And what occurred to me is that I've played this event enough times to where it almost feels like it's my practice room. And I think there's no shortcut. So I'd say to anybody in the crowd that's kind of feeling that way, like, hey, I want to play my best pool when I'm out in Vegas for my national tournaments or in the state tournaments I play. I think you just got to play those things enough to where it just starts to feel like that's your home room. And anyway, that's my one tip for the crowd. Thoughts on that?
I think that's what I was going to say too, with just even you can apply that to your mindset when you draw Jesse or Federer in these events. You're like, oh crap, I got to play Federer. You can apply the same mindset just to that matchup and say it's really just a matter of sample size. It's only significant now because I don't have enough sample sizes against him. And that might lead to like some just pressure, that you put on yourself, really, you know what I mean? To kind of like have to, whereas Federer is just like, this isn't the next match that I'm playing in the next group of 100 matches, you know what I mean? And so he just like, goes after it and doesn't really try and distinguish it, so he can be relaxed because of just volume. And that's kind of the advantage that they have against people like us, the regional rounders or the people that are trying to break in and play more regularly, is that it's just another match for them. And so they can kind of be more relaxed, and a lot of times people do play tight on them, you know what I mean? And then it's not until you get a guy like Jayson or somebody who's has volume, matches against him where, they'll fire straight away. And then it's just a matter of how the match plays out without that other variable.
Well, you've heard other people talk about being tournament tough. I've heard that expression over the years, and that's absolutely true. I mean, these guys go to tournaments every weekend. They're playing top players around the world all the time, where Demetrius, you're teaching the game.
Right.
And you go to these tournaments 3-4 times a year. That's it. So you're laying it out there without being tournament tough, actually.
And the thing about it is that it's, sometimes I think it's important is like sometimes people talk about like, well, mental game or strategies to handle pressure, and all that's good. All that's fine, right? There's a lot of things. Your physical game can take pressure off your mental game. When you have a real solid physical game, it's harder for it to break down. There's definitely things you can do to prepare mentally, to prepare for difficult situations and have a plan. But in the end, I think it's absolutely true that some of it is just experience and volume, like Raymond's saying. And so it would be like somebody saying, hey, I want to prepare mentally, like, how do I prepare to go to the gym and put up a certain amount on the bench press? It's like, well, there's no way you're going to mentally prepare to do that. You just have to go do it. And so some of this is just repetition. So if there's one good takeaway from keeping on drawing guys like Federer again, it's that, I mean, to be fair to me, it's like I was tight out of the gate, but I'll tell you this. I think think that it's normal. I think it's normal. Even top players get tight on the first couple racks when they know they're up against it. But I was much calmer, and I was able to just kind of like it wasn't the traumatic experience it might have been for me 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So for sure.
No, and then once you get to that threshold and you kind of just play, then you're in that sweet spot, right? And then
you looked good to me playing. I mean, I've been the last couple of years. I thought, okay, he's got this a little bit here. I think he's got a shot at this.
Yeah, I played a pretty good set, but anyway, what matters is not, I mean, my tournament, whatever. But
are you going to Derby?
I'm going to Derby. I leave on Thursday, and I'm playing all the events. That'll be a lot of fun. So I'm not going to draw Jesse. I figured out the odds of me drawing Jesse 3 times in a row on all 3 events.
Plus your rebuy draw.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 3 times in a row, just bam, 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 bam. But I'm like, I don't think that's happening. So I'll probably get another shot. And I'll similarly, it's unlikely I'll draw Federer 9 times either. So okay, but the story of the tournament. Let's cut right to the chase, right? I mean, Sky was playing a great tournament and went undefeated to win the hot seat. What do you think, Chris, Raymond, Rob? What do you guys think? Like, what does Sky do that makes him shine in that format? I have some ideas, but what are your thoughts?
I think that he is so involved in the game that nothing else interferes in his mind other than exactly what he's doing to perform and execute. He has no other distractions around because he is having fun. You can tell. no matter how high the stress, how high the pressure, he's having a good time doing what he's doing. He loves what he's doing. And that comes out in his play. It was remarkable, his play.
Yeah.
His pocketing ability is through the roof. It's as good as Jayson's. I mean, it's through the roof. It was just so fun to watch that.
I think Skylar's superpower is his ability to be relaxed. Yep. He really, and we see it in the Mosconi Cup. We see it in big events. He kind of doesn't put added pressure on himself. He doesn't take himself too seriously, but he takes the game seriously. And so I kind of liken it to when you would see Efren make a mistake, he kind of laugh and scratch his head and like, oh, well, I made a donkey mistake, or I hooked myself or did something silly, but then he lets it go. He doesn't let those things compound, and he's kind of really present. And, to Rob's point, he's very single focused. He's not doing multiple things. It's like pulls his thing, and that assuredness, I think Skylar plays within his identity as close to top professionals that are playing at the very top of their game in pool. Like when you see Skylar play and he's playing well, he's playing him. He's expressing who he is on the table. Wow. And I think that's really the key to break through and you play your best pool, is that you're using pool. Pool becomes a vessel for you to express who you are. And I think Skylar expresses who he is very eloquently when it comes to pool and his style of play. It's who he is. And I don't have to think like, oh, he's kind of, he's playing this way or playing that. He's always going to play his way. And I think that's awesome. And he's maturing. We're seeing him, and it's leading to, I think, really a growing time for him, even as good as he's been the last few years. Did you get a chance to watch any of the Turning Stone, Chris? I'm probably not there where you're.
I saw some highlights and stuff, so
okay.
I saw bits of the final, but I try and tune into it whenever it's on. A couple of times.
How about the Mosconi? Did you watch some of that?
Yeah. I watched all of that. I watch all of the events as long as they're. If I'm not playing in them, I'll usually be watching them. But on Sky, I mean, he doesn't do as well as what he should, as good as he is in the big events. I just don't think he does, because he's way better than what his results show. He is a great pocketer of the ball, like you said, Rob. He's right up there. He's a great pocketer of the ball. But in the Matchroom events, I don't think he's done anywhere near as well as what he should have last year.
And I wanted to ask, Chris, can you elaborate? Because I'll tell you, just real quick, I'm going to interject. I think everything you say, I think he's an amazing striker. He moves really well. He's got a tremendous positive energy. And then finally, I think his break for 9-ball, there's certain breaks that he just really, really excels at. It's not a surprise to me that he finished third in the International Open in 18, and that he won the Derby City the following January with that 9 on the spot, back when they could break a little bit different. They weren't such a tight break box. So that 9-ball rack, like Tyler Steyer breaks really well in 10-ball, and I think his 10-ball game, he outperforms his normal, where I think Skylar does really well in 9-ball. That's why, like, when you look at Naoki Oi, I think also has a very positive energy and a clean strike, but he just isn't able to generate the opportunities on the break, whereas Sky outbreaks Mika. He outbreaks even Federer. He was outbreaking Federer. So it's like guys like that, he's going to really perform well in this. So then I have a question, the same question you already started to address. Why has he not done better on the big Matchroom stage? If he does well in the Mosconi Cup and the Turning Stone, why does he not do better in the big Matchroom events?
There's just so
I mean, this is
turning up to those events, I would say.
Yeah, I think we have to take a step back too and realize like Matchroom now is kind of coming to a point where their events are the gold standard really for singles 9-ball events. And for any one player to be in a position to walk into a season of dominating, playing the apex of their game and coinciding that with it being like the Olympics or like the apex events that they can compete in, that is a process that takes a lot of time. So like watching Francisco this past year dominate is so special, right? Because he was 7, 8, 9 years in on the back end of that, learning and not doing anything really, but mentoring himself under guys like David, getting the experience, losing, going deeper, winning certain matches. Like you're constantly in this iterative process where you're proving to yourself that you can take the next step forward. So I think Skylar's in that process now where he's on the tail end of it, and we have so much expectation for him because we know how much ability and talent he has. But to be honest, Shane's not really done all what he could have done for his talent and ability until, just this past year. He's only just won the World 9 Ball, and we've been holding that over his head for like 7-8 years. Like, when's he finally going to snap that off? He finally got it. You know what I mean? And
so I think the gist of your argument,
for the longest time, it was, he can't win overseas, and he finally won the Masters 2 years in a row. But I think it's just a culminative process that eventually those two things align is what I'm.
Yeah. And part of what you're saying is just, the competition is so intense at that high level that it's not enough to be playing great. You kind of have to hit a peak thing. But there's a difference between like dominating like FSR versus just being like representing yourself. Like, take a guy like Alex Kazakis and Sky. I mean, they play so close, but yet Alex is like, he won a World Pool Masters. He's here's the thing: you don't have to win a major. I'm not even saying Sky should be popping off majors, but like he's always getting in the quarterfinals. He's getting in the finals. Yeah. He's getting into the final 8. He's getting in the final 16. He's always in the mix, and Sky is rarely in the mix. Yep.
But he went through a lot of events where he flat dogged it and didn't get there, didn't cross the line in spots that he was way supposed to, like the World Finals against Filler. He's got to make one position shot that it's like a routine position shot. They just get position on the ball and you're out. You win the set, and it ends up going double hill. And he ends up playing another bad safety and leaves Josh a long shot, and then Josh buries the shot and wins. So like he's had those moments where he's fallen short over and over and over again. Had enough heartbreak that he's kind of gotten through, I think, a threshold of pain really to be able to get to the point now where he's like, okay, I don't want to experience that. So I'm going to at least be in the mix, to like make my runs and go deep and win some events. But he had to take his licks to get there. He kind of earned that. Sky still young. He's a young kid. He's, we view him as a veteran. He's been around, but he's a young kid. He's not even, he's what, mid-20s or whatever, like late 20s. I mean,
I think he's 28. I think he's 2 years younger than me.
Efren didn't get here till he was 34.
So you think he's just a year or two away from breaking out and starting to represent himself? What do you think, Chris, and the others? Yeah,
could be. Yeah. There's just so many good players, though.
There's so many good players. It's
just hard.
Yes.
Too many top performers. So you need a huge slice of luck to win those events. I think that's why you see people go through patches when things are just going well for them. They can win 2 or 3 out of 4 or 5 events or something. And then they go away for a year, and then they'll come back and they'll snap off another couple. But his time will come. I'm sure of it. It's too good not to.
Confidence is a thing that varies all the time. I mean, we're just human beings. We're just people. We're not like little robots or anything out there playing pool.
I don't know. Fedor might be.
Yeah, no, there's a possibility that there's a few players out there now that you could call them robots. Yeah, you could. Filler too. I mean, he's a bit of a robot, but
even Filler, he had a couple years where it just looked like he was going to win everything, and then, the last couple years he hasn't like dominated. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't like won every event he goes in. He gets beat a bunch, now, but I think he's still confident who he is. But I think, like to your point, it's not a static thing. It's not like somebody's like hyper confident and that sits there forever. Because if you rely on confidence from something you did 20 years ago, 15 years ago, starts to wane. You gotta really work on it and build it. It's a muscle. It's so like even guys like Jayson, like his podcast interview, with Matchroom, whatever, he revealed health year last year. Guys go through it. It's a difficult thing to go through with so little yield, but you're chasing this idea that you want to grow and prove yourself, and that validation means everything. I think a lot of guys doing what Shane did, where he got to the finals of the World 9 Ball twice in a row and loses, that's broken lesser players, to be honest. It really has. I know guys have gotten to the, like, here in Florida, Donnie's gotten to the finals of the US Open, or got to the semifinals of the US Open. Winner side King of the Hill match, goes double hill with Ralph, breaks and scratches, loses, plays Mika, goes double hill, breaks and scratches and loses, and he hasn't been back. that's rough to deal with mentally.
Murder.
And then to expect these guys to go out there and like volunteer their effort and their heart, for what? To prove it to themselves, really, because the whole world wants to trash talk you online. It's a hard thing to deal with. So when a guy like Jayson, who we view on the outside as a super confident, bravado guy, you would never assume that he has his own demons to fight and things to struggle with. Like, he was open and vulnerable about it. Alex Pagulayan too has been vulnerable and open about stuff. Like, it's a hard thing to do. So to align all the things, as harder to, just on paper, it's hard to win one of these tournaments. Just one, you know what I mean?
For sure.
And if that everybody wants to win at the same time, and you have 20 other guys or 800 Fargo trying to, take advantage of a missed positional shot to kill you and end your tournament, like, and you're not getting paid for it, and everybody else is talking shit to you, like, man, what a rough deal that is, to have to fade and go out there and snap one off for you. Really, you're doing it for yourself. So it's.
Yeah, well, I didn't say winning a major was easier than getting to the finals. I agree that it takes a number of shots and a certain amount of exposure before somebody breaks through. Sky's been around for a while. He's been playing well enough to make a final three, and it's been 4.5 years since the International Open where he took a top three, and he did win the 2019 Derby. That was 3 years ago. So over the last 3 years, I don't feel that he's represented himself in the biggest. I feel that he's played phenomenal pool, great sets, and he's won sets off everybody in the world, and he's gotten great results on the national level and Derby and things. But I don't think he's quite represented himself in the big spots. And then the question is, does he have that year and build that confidence and have that desire and come through in those spots and start showing up a little bit more, or have a year or two where he starts doing that? And I think it could be, it might not be. It's hard. Not everybody can do it. Time will tell. That's my opinion. Is only time will tell. He certainly has the game to do it. Only time will tell what actually happens. But
I think for Sky Woodward, it's less about, and I'm completely speculating here. It's less about trying to find a tournament to break through and just falling in love with the game again. I mean, when you looked at him when he was 22, 23, and of course he had a child, so of course life changes when you get a family, and you get a fiance that. Life just changes. But when you look back when he was 22, 23, 24, he was playing an event every single weekend. He was basically Fedor Gorsting 5 years ago. He was in an event every weekend. Might be a small regional event in the U.S., but you'd see him at the Music City Open or at the Iron or at the Midwest Open, or all of these different regional events that you see throughout the country. You saw him play these events, and now basically what you see him play in is the Matchroom events. He doesn't play any Predator events except for maybe the Alpha Las Vegas Open because of the World 10 Ball, but you don't see him playing any Predator events. You don't see him playing in any of the regional events that he used to play anymore. And if you're only playing once a month, I mean, how dead and stroke can you be?
I feel a little differently. When I saw him, I played him in 2017, or Jesse played him too. And anyway, we both played him in 2017, and we were watching him. And 5-6 years ago, you're right, he was playing all the events, but he was playing the regional events, the national events, and he looked a little burned out. So I mean, he was drinking beers when he was playing. He was partying a little bit. Yeah, he had a new kid, but I think at that time, but maybe not yet. But it was around there. No. Okay. In any case, he didn't look like he was committed, and I feel like at that point, like he had done well. He was doing well nationally, but he just felt like he was so far from the top players and internationally. It just felt like he was kind of questioning that. Now I actually like what he's doing, which is he's kind of like, I'm not going to chase around bar table tournaments and be satisfied being a top bar table player or a top national player. I want to get on the big stage. I want to prove that I can play with anybody. And I think he's shown that his physical game can get there with anybody. And I actually I think he has a better chance of breaking through at a high level, playing one tournament a month that's international, and just keep on getting in the ring against the best of the best of the best than he would just, running around the bar table scene and showing up for the US Open once a year. I just don't think that. So I'm actually excited to see the road he's taking. I think that's his best chance of,
I'm pushing back on you, because if he's training like Albin or Niels or Ralph or something like that, sure. But what I hear from Sky, from interviews or just talking to him at these events, even when he played, even when he went into that matchup last year against at Shane, I did a little interview with him, and I don't know if he's telling the truth or not, but I mean, he says this at basically every single event. He goes into every single event saying he just hasn't been playing, and if you're training and you're treating it as a profession, you know that Albin right now is probably on a pool table playing. You know that Joshua Filler is probably, and those are Albin is the type of player who does the same thing. He only plays these events. These are the ones he gets up for. He doesn't play the Euro Tours. He doesn't play the Predator events. He plays the Matchroom events, and basically that's it. A few others here and there. He doesn't even play like Derby City. I mean, he's like the alpha when it comes to only playing the events that matter, right? But he's also, you know dang well that he's on the table training right now. Like if I offered you even money right now that Albin is either practicing right now or not practicing, what are you going to take?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, there's no doubt that
this guy is not.
Well, you can't, playing, showing up alone doesn't work if you don't have, like you said, if you don't have that desire and then the action to match the desire. But I just think that he's got to play the biggest events to do well in the biggest events. Now, for people that we've been talking about Sky, we haven't even talked about what happened at Turning Stone. So I just want to at least let everybody know, because not everybody knows what just happened. So in Turning, Sky Woodward wins the hot seat. He beats Jayson Shaw. I think he was down 5-0, comes back and ends up winning the set to 9. And so he wins the hot seat. Jayson Shaw comes through the B side, and now it's a 1-set finals race to 13. And it was a really swingy finals because they were both running racks from their break, and it's a 9 balls a momentum game sometimes. And Sky gets up 3-0, and from 3-0 ahead, going to 13, Jayson Shaw gets up 12-6. So Jayson wins 12 out of the next 15 games to go up 12-6. And at 12-6, he gets a shot to run out, makes a tough cut on the 6 ball, and Jayson hooks himself so where he can't hit the 7 ball, makes a good hit, sells out a shot. So Sky gets to the table. He's down 12-6 going to 13. He needs to win 7 games in a row. And Sky shoots and runs out those 3 balls or whatever, 12-7. And at 12-7, he breaks and runs out 5 racks in a row to go 12-12. And all of a sudden, I mean, it was amazing to watch. And then at 12-12, just let's talk about what happened. He breaks and he makes 3 balls and he's got a shot to run out. He shoots the first shot, and the cue ball gets on tree-topped over the 9 ball. So he's bridged from almost frozen over the 9 ball. And the interesting part, we could talk about this or not, but the cue ball didn't look like it was going to stop over the 9, but they put a new spot on the table, and the cue ball hit the spot and then rolled over the 9 ball just a little. And he ended up with a tough next shot. He was able to put that one down, but because he was tree-topped, he was not able to play position. He was left with a very long, difficult back cut on the 6 with awkward position, and he rattled it out, leaving Jayson Shaw like an easy, not easy, but a 4-ball run, and Jayson ran him out. So
pretty easy.
So 12-6 down, he gets a shot, runs out, breaks and runs 5, and he almost broke and ran the whole set out from there. Came down to a kind of a heartbreaker on the final rack. And before we talk about what happened or whatever, Nate, I just wanted to mention that is 3 amazing escapes for me in the last couple of years betting pool. The first one was that last pocket 8 ball where we bet on, which we don't need to recap that on the podcast, but that was one of the most amazing escapes I've ever made on a bet. The last one I bet on Tony Chohan getting to 22, and that was the one where he was up 21-19, and then Shane wins 4 in a row, and then Shane has him down 7-1, and he makes that one that was on the highlight reel, that run out. That one got me paid, that run out from there. And now I was betting on Jayson Shaw over Sky, and I thought I had the whole thing set, and I was just sick. I mean, I'm rooting for Sky, but I'm sick to my stomach at the same time. And so I'm like, So I've been very fortunate. So if you're listening, whoever bet against me on that match online, sorry about that. Anyway, so what are your thoughts on the finals, guys? That was amazing to watch. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, from my perspective, I don't get too excited watching pool normally. I'm not involved in it. I'm just watching and enjoying what I'm seeing. But my heart was pounding. It was. I mean, my blood pressure went up and my heart was pounding. And of course, I'm really I just root for the guy that plays the best most of the time, not one particular. And I don't bet on games, so I don't have that thing kind of hanging on. Like I really want this guy to win because I'm going to win a bunch of money. And I was honestly at 12-6. I wasn't sure Jayson was going to win that. I really wasn't.
No, I know. It felt that way.
Sky,
I don't think Jayson
he's still here. He's not leaving.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was so impressed. I really, after it was over, and that last rack was just my mind blew up after that last rack. Seriously, it did. The couple little things that happened there. And I've never had so much fun watching a pool match as I did that finals at Turning Stone. It was great.
So I'll jump in.
Yeah,
I've got a weird thought. So I think that the funny part is like there's a question to ask is like, what should your mindset be when you're down 12-6 or 12-7 or whatever? And I feel like if you're like, I'm going to come back and win from here, that's a pretty hard story to tell yourself because then you can be like, well, you understand the mathematical, like the probability is low. It's hard to get enthusiastic about the goal of coming back and winning. But I think that watching Skylar, what it felt like Skylar's goal was at that point was, I'm not going to let you outplay me. I'm not going to let your play or your score lead make me give it away to you or make your job easy. I'm going to be obnoxious. It's almost like that if you guys play chess, is those chess players where you should resign by now, but you're just going to keep playing even though you're down like a rook and a bishop in the end game, and you're just going to play it out and hope that it's like, nah, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to make you earn it. I'm going to try to complicate the position and duck my king in between pawns so that you have to dodge stalemate threats and try to run you down on the clock. And it's like, it's just annoying. And I feel like when you're in that spot, it's like, look, you're going to beat me, but I'm going to be annoying to you. I'm not just going to give it to you. I'm not going to go quietly into the night. And I feel like that's a really good mindset where I feel like when Sky was running those racks, I feel like he was just kind of being like, I'm going to do to you what I wouldn't want somebody to do to me if I was in your spot, which is make you earn it. And then the funny part though is that as it got to 12-12, I feel like that mindset's good to make a comeback, but at some point it has to shift to where you're like ready to take the win. And so you could sit there and say, it was just, statistics in action, which is sometimes you run out, sometimes you don't. That was just the time you don't get out. You could talk about it being a choke. You could talk about it being a bad roll to get over the 9. But I really feel like he was just I'm going to kind of pester you kind of a mindset. And I feel like once he started getting near the hill, you've kind of got to find a different mindset where you're actually ready to take the set now. Easier to say. I'm not saying I could do it. I would have lost at 12-6.
Any thoughts?
Chris, what do you think?
I would have lost at 12-1.
Yeah.
Chris, what do you think?
Isn't it? Sometimes if you're down in a match towards the end, I mean, sometimes you just feel up for it. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes
That's right.
you just feel like it's going to happen. Sometimes you know it's not going to happen. It's just one of those things. Someone told me ages ago, a professional snooker player told me years and years ago, the best thing to do is just make sure if you're up for it and you're 12-6 down or something, just make sure you're getting back to the table, no matter what you do. Just make sure you're getting back to the table and just annoy the hell out of whoever you're playing. Like you just said, Demetrius, just annoy them until you've got nothing left. But sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I think you're just looking for an opportunity, really. If it's 12-6 down, he's got control. I just want to get another chance. If I can get another chance, I can do what I can with it. You can't really sweat too much of the outcome stuff. You just got to really take whatever you get and play the best shot you can from that position to stay fighting. You definitely don't want to quit. You don't want to just kind of like lay it up. So you want to make it as hard as you can on your opponent. But really, it's just, what can I do with this next inning? If Sky was to wrestle that 5-pack on there. So he did it also earlier on the winner side, Final Four, where he was down 5-1 and he turned the set around and won 9-6 from there. So he beat him, 8-1 from there. So he has evidence just 2 rounds prior that he can do the exact same thing. So he really should be thinking about that. Like, hey, I've got the confidence that I can win this match from here because I just did it. This exact same scenario happened earlier in the set. I was down a good number and I won 8-1 from there. Here I got to win 6-0. So that's within the wheelhouse of 8-1. So if I just get an opportunity, I'm going to play the best pool I can and see where they fall. And so he got to where he had that long shot on the 6. I think, the guys, and I think on that opening 2 ball, he had a couple of choices. My initial instinct was for some reason to draw back and not go forward and kind of play it to where I can shoot it in the corner. It's kind of a comfortable angle too, where you can draw your cue ball back 2 cushions. And if it happens to bobble and go to the middle of the cushion, you have cover behind the 4 or behind the 4, and the 4 still passes the 6 up table and you have shape. So it's, okay. I thought it was probably maybe my initial instinct, but he's kind of a quick player and he probably was like, well, I know that I can bury this 2 ball if I just follow it up, just make it and follow the cue ball up table. I think maybe I would have taken just a hair more time to figure out where it's going. I think getting close to the spot is bad position. And
Right.
the difference between the middle of the table and the spot, then he's perfect because the 4 is open, the 6 is open. And he probably doesn't have to bury that long 4 and have to come with a long 6. You know, you're dipping into the well a lot at that point. So I think the critical shot is being clear on making the 2-1, which I think he was clear about because he buried it. But really, where's his cue ball going? And just taking that extra little time, which is really where I think maybe separates him still from because Shane has a little bit of a taste of what it takes to make that extra, you know, get that extra inning to win a big event, you know, and why maybe we see Shane winning a World 9 balls, you know, maybe Sky hasn't, you know, quite got there yet, but, you know, stuff like this helps, right?
Well,
you realize
one thing
like
that happens. One thing that happens.
Maybe
on
I
this
take
is,
take that. Like, he's not, you know, he's a naturally quick player, but like, you know, just take that little extra moment and say, hey, be real clear about where Whitey's going because she's the most important one. I know everybody says make the ball, but like, man, cue ball is so important. It changes everything. And he cuts balls in from everywhere. So,
well, I think that's the thing. So we've all had the experience where sometimes people try to do too much. Like, for example, let's take a 6 ball that he missed. People might even say he tried to do too much on the 6 ball. Maybe he should have just kind of made sure he made it and then stay in control. But the same thing can happen when you don't do enough. Meaning, so when people try to do too much, sometimes they're nervous about their future ability. They're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able on my next shot to make the 8 from there, make the 9 from there. So I want to not only make this ball, but go 14 rails and get perfect. So that way it's all over with. Well, that's a lack of confidence in your future ability. But the same thing, you can panic the other way and say, you can be so nervous in the moment that you're like, oh my God, this 2 looks really tough. It's hill. I don't even know. Tell you what, instead of asking myself to play
I
shape,
just want to make it and go.
I'm just going to cinch the ball, fling my cue ball up table, and then hopefully I'll land good and I'll figure it out because I'm a good player. I'll figure it out. So I actually feel like it was a lack of confidence in that moment to where he's like, I'm just going to cinch the ball and I'm sure I'll be okay and I'll figure it. I've got to land good because I'm not strong enough right now to figure out how to make sure I land good. And so I'm not making fun of him. I'm just saying that's how I feel when I just cinch the ball and fling the cue ball up table.
And it could be maybe not even it could also be very nuanced. It could just be like you're caught up in the emotional storm. Like, oh, I'm going to run the set out. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
he's just run 6 racks.
And you start thinking about the externality. It's hard to do. It's hard to just be mind. And I think it can really just quiet that down and say, I'm not going to get lost in this, like, because I've had that feeling where you get amped just a hair, you know what I mean? And then you're like, oh, I'll just shoot it from anywhere and I'm out. You know what I mean? To Demetrius's point, it's like the details matter, you know, where the ball's, you know, if he's not over the 9, you know, like in the kitchen area above the foot string, he's dead out. You know, the game's over.
Yeah, put yourself in his position. One game at a time, getting closer and closer and closer to the hill.
It's such a lot of pressure. It's such a lot of pressure. It makes me, I couldn't even fathom. I mean, it makes me sick to even think about. Before I bow out, I just wanted to mention the one thing that I think is an interesting idea, and I haven't done it yet. I'm going to start tomorrow with my buddy Josh. He's coming over to actually, by the way, we're going to drop a little one-on-one podcast. So for people that listen to this podcast that don't know, Josh and I also do like a one-on-one, a little bit long-form kind of discussion, not for everybody, but for people that are interested in checking it out. That gets uploaded on the Cue It Up platform and Facebook and Podbean as well. But anyway, he's coming over. What we're going to do is we're going to start playing some one pocket situations where one of us is going to start up 7-0 on ball count with a lot of the balls up table. And then vice versa. We're going to take turns playing from down 7-0. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to take turns playing from 4-4 with all the other balls wedged kind of up in the corner. Because basically what we try to talk about is what are the most miserable spots to be in one pocket. And then why don't we just play those out a handful of times and play like a race to 3 or whoever can win the first game from down 7-0, because that way we figure if we practice it out from there, it's not like we don't have a game plan of what to do when we get there, but it's pretty miserable. And if we could just kind of mentally prepare like, hey, I'm going to be down 7-0 all day, so might as well have fun with it. And, you know, maybe that'll help me in those spots. Reason I bring it up is it might be fun to play some 9-ball sets that way where you play races to 5 and you start down 4-0 and take turns seeing who can steal the first set. I don't know. It was just a fun idea that we're going to mix up with. And I thought
Demetrius, isn't this the reason that you don't like I mean, obviously there's many reasons, but isn't this one of the biggest reasons you hate bar table tournaments is because you have to like handicap it? It's basically what you're doing is you're playing a 450 Fargo, but you're down 5-0 to start out to 6.
We're training. We're not competing. We're
No, that's
training.
cool. That's
Yeah.
a cool idea. Yeah, that's awesome.
Do you guys feel that when you're in a tournament and you're down, and you start out down, maybe it's a race to 7 and it's like 6-1 or something, or 6-0, that something internally inside you happens, and it's almost as if you say to yourself, "Well, I wanted to be in this situation."
Right.
If I get down 1-0 in a race,
it's like you find a different person inside you.
Nate's lost the leg and unscrewed his cues before.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like that. Sometimes I like to like sit there and get punched in the face, and like it's almost like I'm not. Sometimes I can be a slow starter and I'll not be super sharp jump straight out of the jump, and I might make I'll feel myself into it, but all of a sudden the guy puts a 4 on me or something. I'm like, oh crap, now I gotta lock in. Then you lock in. Yeah, exactly. And then you get to that place where so the trick is, how do you get to that place right away? So you're not.
It's what you just said is so smart. A great player talked about that because it's a known thing, right? When people go into give up stroke, basically, there's no expectation. They already kind of the word is surrender. They've let go of all expectation. They've let go of all attachment to the outcome. They've already experienced the lows of like falling behind, making blunders, making screw ups, choking, and at some point they're not trying to really win anymore because they've already, not only are they behind on the score, but they're playing badly enough to be hopelessly behind on the score. And then at some point, they just kind of, all the pressure falls off and all the expectations gone. And they're just like, well, nothing to do but hit balls and swing my cue. And I think we've all seen some of our best performances come from behind. I know I have. So then the question is, how do you do that off the leg? And CJ Wiley actually talks about this. And there's a deep conversation that we could have. But basically, he just says, before he ever played a big tournament match, when he was playing his best, he would spend 10 minutes visualizing having just gotten roasted that set and just play, like having just been weak and nervous and tight and hanging up balls and underperforming and having that guy run over him. And he would visualize that. And people all thought that was negative thinking. But what he was trying to do is just put himself in a spot where he had let go
himself to get hot.
And so he could try to come up that when he laid the balls, he was already in give up stroke. And I've heard this not just from CJ, I've heard this from a number of players, fairly counterintuitive. There's a difference between visualizing yourself choking and missing balls versus visualizing yourself being in a spot where you're kind of surrendering.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't we I'm gonna pose a question to you guys. One word answer. Ready? Jayson Shaw is now leading Team Europe for the Mosconi Cup at the end of the year. Yes or no? Will he still be top 3 by the end of the year? Ray?
Top 3? Yeah.
Rob?
Yes.
Chris?
Yep.
Demi?
No. Are you talking money? Just talking money leaderboard?
Just the money.
I'm gonna go no.
I'm gonna go with no too. I don't think he can maintain it. I think there's just too many players, and I don't think he plays enough of the all the smaller events. Okay, so Sky Woodward's now number 1 for the U.S. Is he going to finish top 2 in the U.S. by the end of the year? Right?
Is Sky going to finish top 2 in cash and points?
In the points. Yep.
Sure. Yeah.
Rob?
Yes.
Chris?
I'm just trying to think of who would be challenging him outside of.
It's a different conversation than the European.
Yeah, I'll have to go yes because I can't think of anyone. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's kind of it. Like, who's going to challenge it? Although, I mean, there's, you could. There's Billy Thorpe could, Oscar Dominguez if he plays a full schedule.
Oscar, yeah. Sorry, yeah, Oscar, yeah.
Even a player like Jeremy Sosi. I mean, if Jeremy Sosi plays a full schedule, when he plays regularly, man, he seems to finish deep every tournament he plays in.
So let me.
Do you guys think? I got a question.
I'm sorry, Rob. Let me jump in with this. I'm just going to throw out a stat because I forgot to mention that Jeremy Sosi, monster player, and I'll tell you something. He got to the finals. The final 2 undefeated, right? He made the hot seat. Yep. He was playing for the hot seat. And here's the people don't know is he won like 6 matches. Was it six matches with a combined score? I think he gave up like 8 games. Like it was 9-0, 9-1, 9-0, 9-1, 9-2, 9-1, 9-0. it was like unbelievable. And I'm talking against pretty good players. You know, like I might be wrong. I'm not looking at the brackets, but guys like Danny Hewitt and Eric Orlofsson and like some good players. And he was just 9-1, 9-1, 9-1 the whole way through the winter side. And I mean, I'll tell you what, man, I actually it's too bad the way it kind of played out because he was breaking well, playing great. And it was just, anyway, I just wanted to mention, shout out to Jeremy.
Yeah, so Jeremy won his first match 9-0, and then he beat Pat Fleming 9-4. Tony Antone 9-1, Billy Thorpe 9-2, Danny Hewitt 9-1, Kevin West 9-0.
So how many games did he give up? Danny Hewitt, Billy Thorpe, Kevin West.
2-1-4.
I mean, Kevin had a good tournament too.
Yeah, good. Yeah, shout out to Kevin West.
I think, what did he give up? Like 9 games or something? Like he gave up like 9 games on his way to the hot seat match. Playing
1, 3, 4, 8. Yeah, eight games.
8 games. So he won 6 matches, which is like 54-8. Like just, I mean, it's an amazing performance. So anyway, sorry, Rob, what were you going to say? I didn't mean to.
I'm curious about how you guys feel about this, but I was thinking about it today. We all know that Tony Chohan is one of the greatest one pocket players out there and shot maker. Do you think that down the road here in the next few years, we're going to see him in other types of tournaments than one pocket excelling and winning?
To be honest with you,
9-ball or that kind of stuff.
Tony, we were talking a lot about mental fortitude earlier with Sky and how tough he is mentally. You want to talk about mental fortitude. Like Tony Chohan has had a rough go of it the last 6 or 7 months. I mean, every one of the big matchups that he's played, I love Tony. He's lost. I mean, he lost to Alex twice. He lost to Chip a couple times. He ended up beating Chip, but he lost to Chip twice. He lost to Shane now. I mean, he lost to did he lose to Fedor?
And I think he's rematching Shane in a month or something, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's had some big one pocket matchups in the last basically 6, 7, 8 months, and he's lost most of them, and he's still out there grinding. He's still out there battling. So, I mean, that can be tough. That can be pretty tough when you don't have that, those other events to go on. I don't think I just don't think that Tony has whatever it takes to want to play rotation pool at a high level.
I don't think so. Huh?
I mean, if he has, I mean, he's not a young guy. I mean, actually, Tony's
right.
He's sneaky old. I think he's around 40 or I think he's around 40 years old.
His birthday's today, no? 41 today.
Oh, well, happy birthday to Tony Chohan. Yeah, he's 41 years old. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think Tony's one of those. Tony's one of those. There's a handful of American guys that are heavy talent, heavy on the talent and ability, and low on the discipline, dedication scale when it comes to things that we're talking about, like chasing these rotation tournaments around the world. Like Tony has very little interest in that because obviously it's a big financial situation to get, tangled into that. And he's big on the money side, so he gets it in cash games or big one pocket events where he dominates or has the best of it, or he has people that definitely believe in his ability to go up there and get it. So it's a different kind of approach for him. Like, guys like Paul, I would look at as another person who's like super high talent scale and ability quotient, but very low on the discipline and dedication side. And, a few other guys, I mean, Bergman's out there, obviously, who's got obviously a lot of talent and ability, but hasn't committed to traveling. Maybe this year he will. If he does, that changes the kind of spectrum of stuff. But a lot of the guys that are in that spot, it's hard. It's hard financially to cover all the costs of traveling all around the world and putting up 3,000 every event, to go on 4, 5. It's kind of dumb, really, when you think about it. You got to be a little daft,
I put all of my money into doing it and traveling to the big events, but if you've got any ambition of doing stuff, then
you got to eat that. You got to eat that 100%. You got to do it. So the guys that have committed to do it kind of are looking beyond the numbers, right? They're looking at what it means for them and this window of time they have to be at their best, and they got something to prove to themselves, and that to them is more than money, so they find ways to get sponsors and get from point A to point B, and all credit to them. That
Do
they're
you think, Raymond? Do you think that's kind of where you're at there? With
say
your
again.
game and stuff. You're working your way toward that particular mark.
Yeah, I tabled competing around the country for like 6 years because I had to get the financial side in order. And I picked up, the family responsibility along the way and had a little girl. And so, I had to stop playing for 5 or 6 years. And that was also very humbling and painful to deal with personally, to watch opportunities go to people that I felt like I had more experience than and more ability and skill than, but I wasn't out competing. So, they say the best ability is availability, and people have made themselves available to walk into. Now we're getting into like a really great time for pool as far as what it's been contextually over the last 20 years. It's the best it's been. And, it's something that sucks. So there's a little bit of that I had to deal with mentally as I kind of jumped back in last year. But I'm at a point now where the money doesn't matter to me either, because I've taken care of it on my side. You know what I mean? I've kind of taken that responsibility. So I'm willing to absorb those costs and go and compete because it means something to me.
Right.
And, that's, I think, when people get to that place and they just put themselves in positions to kind of go through those lumps and go through the volume of stuff you need to go through in order to get to where you can just play your best against whomever, then that's how you give you something that's meaningful. But it has to start with you wanting to kind of suck that up and eat that. So
that means the next couple of years now we can look for your name to be at.
Yeah, I mean, I had
these
some wins this past year. I beat Roland Garcia in a big Predator event. I cashed in a couple of those. I beat one of the Cole brothers at the International Open. Had a kind of match, a controversial match against one of the Europeans, who I shared my thoughts with him after the tournament, but it was instructive for me nonetheless because of whatever moves and stuff were happening that cost me the match. But stuff like that, I'm ruffling feathers. So, but I got to train and get back to work just like everybody else, regardless of whether I win or lose. So I think the process and being dedicated to that, when you get to that point where you love training and love the work, then that kind of predetermines whether you're going to be successful.
Sure. Well, I hope you do well.
Me too. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Watching you.
All right, well, I'm just saying, if you make the Mosconi Cup team, you get into one of those 3 spots. Just don't forget about us little guys. Still try to come on and talk to us every now and then.
I'll see what I can do.
Can I give a shout out here, Nate?
Go ahead.
I want to give a shout out because I do entertain 3-cushion billiards in my life now a little bit more than pocket pool, and I want to shout out to Mazen Shuni, who's doing everything he can in this atmosphere to get all players of all levels involved in 3-cushion. And he has a tournament every year now. It's been out in Tucson for the last 5, where he has a B tournament where you can only be at a certain level to play. Everybody can play if you're under a certain level. So it's a little bit like Fargo capped. And then he has a handicap tournament where everybody can play. You just have a certain number that you go to.
Sweet.
So all the top players play with all the B players. And then he has an open tournament. And then he has a Scotch doubles tournament. And all 4 of these are run in 1 week every year. And so I'm going to shout out to Mazen for doing this because it's just really great for the sport. And the participation out there in this tournament is huge. And I want to congratulate the no handicap tournament winner, Ricky Caranco. Is a tremendous player, and he beat Luisa Vega.
Oh wow!
In the finals, Hill match in the no handicap open event.
Race to 40.
It was 30 in that.
30.
So, but they shortened it up a little bit. I think they had a little time issue, something out there for that.
Well, good for him. Yeah, that's that big as a champ.
Yeah, I've watched. I've been in a couple of tournaments where Vega has played. I hadn't played him myself, but so I watched him up close and play. And you're looking at Jayson Shaw on steroids in 3-cushion billiards with this fella. So anybody can. He ran 40 in a tournament a couple years ago. So Ricky, and I watched him play out in Tucson 2 years ago when I was out there. And it's just going from just watching somebody, a normal player play, and then watching these two guys.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strong.
It's kind of like the Sky and Jayson match in the finals of,
right.
Out there in Turning Stone. It was it's just phenomenal. So my shout out to Luis and Ricky, and then Mazanchuni.
Sure.
Amazing billiards.
For organizing and running these events.
All right. Well, let's make a pivot from there, and let's go to our fun controversy of the day. I want to vent because I don't know. I just haven't vented for a while, and I just feel like I want to vent. I was particularly triggered, we'll say, by a recent post I saw from Earl Strickland. We talked about this a little bit trigger warning. We talked about this a little bit before the show, and we decided let's stop talking about it so we can talk about it on the show. I'm gonna
jump out on this one, Nate.
Okay.
So
yeah, go ahead.
I'll let you do it. I'll catch you guys later. Thank you.
Nice to watch you.
See you later, Jay. DJ.
Good luck at the Derby.
Yep. All right. So I guess here's the post. I mean, you can read it. So there is a $10 million tournament that would be great. So if anyone wants me to go on the Joe Rogan podcast for years, I don't even know. All right. So I will go on if you support me and pool. Help me get 1 million likes and followers on my fan page on Facebook, and I will go on to promote pool and maybe spill my beans. Now let's see what happens. So basically what he's saying in a nutshell is if I get to 1 million likes or followers or whatever it is, I will go on and promote pool. I mean, this is
he'd probably do it for 10,000.
I mean, this is I'm gonna jump on my box here. This is the same mentality why pool died in the 90s into the early 2000s, right? It is nothing more than you do this for me and I'll do something in return. I mean, the Camel Tour, we all know. I mean, Earl Strickland was very pivotal in that the last big outside sponsor that pool ever had. Earl Strickland was pivotal in that falling apart. Now that was mostly actual match related, but I mean, the point is like those events were pretty big. They had, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 events a year. They were making decent money, not great. You're not retiring at age 25, but there was some decent money in those. And that was the last time that there was a real corporate sponsor that was involved with pool. You were one of the biggest reasons that was gone. You're not the only reason, but you were a huge reason involved in that. And now you're looking at this, later on in your career, and you're like, if you continue to give me what I want out of this industry, then I'll think about trying to actually promote it and help the game out so that the next generation doesn't have to struggle the way that I did, mostly because of my sabotaging on the industry to begin with. And then you have these people that just sit back and worship him like, oh my God, Earl Strickland, you are the greatest thing that's ever happened. And I'm sick of it. I mean, at the end of the day, like this past generation that just sits out there and just tries to suck dry the entire industry for every penny that they can get because they think that they're owed something from 30 years of not being paid what they thought they deserve. And now this could actually, maybe this will do nothing. Maybe you're going to go on there, you're going to talk about all the dark sides of it. Maybe you're going to go on there and it's going to do not a darn thing. You're going to talk about all the bad parts of pool, like the gambling, the dirty, back alley deals, whatever. All I know is that I don't even care about that. Maybe it will do it, not a single thing. Maybe it will even hurt the game. I don't care about what the ramifications are for you going on there. I care only about what you're talking about, which is I'm not going to do anything potentially good for the game until you guys do something for me, and I think it's worth it. It's a quid pro quo, and it's just ridiculous. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't want to be involved with the game, then get out of the game. If you want to be involved with the game, care about its future. There's my soapbox.
Yeah, I mean, has anybody made more prize money in pool than Earl?
Probably not.
So
maybe.
He's had plenty. And I know he had a big Q-Tech deal for like a decade or more or something, where they were paying him a ton of money. And, he's been well looked after over the years, and he's pissed every penny of it away, as far as I can tell. Nobody's going to want him on Joe Rogan to have a free-flowing conversation. What's he going to talk about? Has he got anything?
Joe wants him on.
Joe wants him on. Probably for that reason.
Joe said that he wants to have him on. He's a
Yeah,
He will
legend.
never ever won.
He said he's been
He's
trying to
he's
get him
all
on,
about
too.
the entertainment.
There's
Yeah,
no
why
way
not?
that'll happen.
Yeah.
There's just absolutely there's no way. That'll be the shortest Joe Rogan podcast in history. It'll be
38
incoherent for 30% of it.
30, maybe Joe will then go work out or something. I don't know. Maybe it'll be cool to have Earl.
Honestly, I don't know. Ray, you said you wanted to defend a little bit, so go on.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little
Oh,
bit
me
for
too.
Earl. I think nobody on breathing on the planet can carry Earl's jockstrap when it comes to the contribution he's done for the sport. And Barry Hearn and Matchroom and this whole thing is predicated on a love for 9-ball. And that man breathing there is 9-ball. He's probably the most naturally gifted 9-ball player to ever blink and have a heartbeat, and spawned a generation of players that played pool at what would be maybe the first real big golden age of pool over the early 90s on the ESPN, and made it a national thing. Characters like him and his generation were the reason why we're talking about pool today. And I think Earl had, probably by no help of himself and his mental health and all the stuff that he carries, has made himself a target for a long time. People heckle him and like to talk trash to him and all this other stuff. And Joe Rogan himself, his connection to Earl is this famous heckle fest that he had, making fun of Earl, saying, you know, I jumped full Q with a Mucci. How strong is that? Blah, blah, blah. This whole, like, you know, mock persona thing that he did. And so
You ain't got
that probably triggered Earl, right? Because people have been heckling him for 20, 30 years, and he doesn't give a crap how big the platform is. You know, he doesn't want to go on there and get made fun of, because, you know, he's going to get on there and it's going to be a song and dance. And unfortunately for Earl, that's part of the allure, and that over 30 years of time has to have a grading effect on someone's persona and someone's personal value, how they view themselves. They know that they're a show as opposed to a genius, you know. And he's a troubled genius. He really is. He's done and created on a 9-ball table what no one else has ever done or created on a 9-ball table. And so I understand his grievance, where he's like, well, you know, I've given and bled, and he's done something very few people have done, which is from the jump known that he wants to commit his whole being to one thing, unfiltered, undistracted. He's committed himself entirely to one thing, and that one thing has not really given him a sustainable livelihood. You know, part of that also is, you know, athletes in general, not just in pool, but athletes top to bottom in major sporting organizations tend to not be the best at managing their assets and their money when they have a lot of it, you know. And when you grow up in a barn somewhere in North Carolina and you travel around, you beat a guy, you got a little money, and it gets you to the next spot, and you play a tournament, you got a little money, and that gets you to the next spot, and you kind of fly by the seat of your pants. That's how this guy's existed, you know. And so when he makes a post that triggers Neight, you know, Neight comes from a different time than Earl comes from, right? He comes from a place that has a little bit of nuance on social media and the impact that it could have and the overall big picture stuff. So you're viewing it from there. You know, Earl's probably trying to figure out where's the next exhibition he's going to be able to go to rub 2 quarters together for the next month, you know? So, you know, social nuance and great. He doesn't understand that if he goes on the literally biggest podcast in the world, he might get 1 million followers the next day off of like the first 8 minutes of talking on Joe Rogan,
or some
you know,
death threats.
or whatever it is, you know, he's a character, but unfortunately, he's been treated more as a character because he's such a character. And so he's probably over the bullshit and over all the stuff and over all the crap, and people up his ass and asking him to be this and also, you know, the whole going to England to play in the Mosconi Cup thing and then not being able to play. Like that's all very taxing on soul psyche. He's already has a modicum of instability about him that people are fascinated by, because that's the draw. They're like, well, is Earl going to jack up and fire this 9-ball in and spear the cue ball back 6 feet and get perfect and be a genius? Or is he going to smash his cue across the referee's head and get arrested and walked out and put into a cell somewhere? So Earl is a tornado. He's a storm. You know, it's just how he is. And his lack of understanding of the technical graces of social media and his impact, just by him waking up and picking up a cue, he's doing what he can best do for the sport, which is show his talent, show his genius, and show his dedication to the game. I understand in a weird way where Earl's coming from, because honestly, golf and tennis and a lot of these, like the NBA, for instance, has done a lot to kind of reach back and like help some of the older players that missed out on this financial windfall they have now, right? Like Luka is going to sign a contract tomorrow, right? That his next contract will be more than what the NBA made in the 60s. You know, seriously, it's like a joke, you know?
Hold on.
So
I gotta say, a lot of the reason why it grew in popularity was because of the contributions of players like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and Oscar Robinson and all those players that were
I get it.
huge stars.
I get
and they
that.
contributed to the actual marketing of it. Now,
I totally get that. I don't think Earl is a country boy from North Carolina. His education was on a 4.5 by 9. You know what I mean? It's a different attitude. It's a different respect quota. So you're asking him to swallow a lot of pride to walk on a Rogan, even though it's probably the best thing that could happen for him in this stage of his career, especially if he had a product behind him. I'm smart. If I was Earl's manager, I would have a product on the back end that he could post a link to, even if it's an old video or something, so he can walk onto the Joe Rogan show and say, you know, this is where you can find me. This is my website. You can buy some merch. You can buy, you know, this little lesson on how to play pool or whatever, and then go. Because now you got free advertising to something that'll make you a little coin, and you're just going to be yourself. And Rogan will be very gracious, because he's a gracious host. He knows how to manage all that stuff, and will be complimentary of Earl. The videos will be a little embarrassing for him, whatever, and he'll talk about it, but it'll be a way to bridge the gap and be like, who's this crazy persona that Joe Rogan is imitating, who's this great comedian and all this other stuff, but why is he so interested in Earl? And then they can go in and talk about him and honor him. And I don't think he sees it that way. I think he sees like, well, they're going to make fun of me and they're going to talk shit about me again, and just like they do always, and I never have, you know, he's traumatized for years of being run through the Pony and Silker show, but he's kind of the author of that for himself too. So all I'm saying is that Earl has done an amazing amount of stuff for 9-ball pool. I've been inspired by his game. A lot of the top players who teach in Europe now and have kind of like put forward his attacking style, which is like the meta basically that's, you know, been evolved for 9-ball over the last 20-30 years. It's his style that people started copying. It's not Mike Siegel, it's not Efren, it's not anybody, it's not Buddy Hall. You know, they want to break and jump and shoot like Earl. You know, that's how, at least I've seen it over the last 20 years. That's how guys have kind of put themselves together. So he's already done more than anybody ever has and probably ever will do for 9-ball. And now it's just a matter of, you know, reining him in a little bit, you know, and kind of making him see the bigger picture and putting him in a spot where this opportunity, which is still available to him, is one that actually benefits him. So
part of that is you have to have enough inward ability to look at yourself and kind of understand what's going on. And he is in love with playing the victim card, right? I mean, everything that happens to him is somebody else's fault, and he's unwilling to take responsibility for anything that he does.
There's a lot of pro pool players that are like that, Nate. They're just better about hiding it.
Sure.
They're just better about hiding it and whining about it so that they get what they want. There's a lot of people that are really entitled. Few of them have 5 World 9-ball titles and 5 US Open titles and everything else, and 10 million livers in their pouch, you know, from having shut out the way Earl does. So Earl has a different platform to stand on.
And if this was golf, and if this was tennis, and if this was the NBA, and he had those type of credentials, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because he would be a multimillionaire, assuming he didn't bust himself. But that's not where we're at. It's not.
It would be theater. It would just be theater.
Just like the NBA was not like this in the 60s and 70s, right? At the end of the day, like someone's got to do the legwork. Someone has to do the legwork. And there's a lot of people
and that's
right now
being
that are
done.
contributing.
That's being done, and unfortunately for Earl, that legwork will likely pass him by. And
It doesn't mean that he cannot contribute to it
the
or
fruits.
actively try to sabotage
I
it
totally
along the way.
understand that, but that takes a lot of humility, and I don't think Earl has that level of self-awareness, let's say, to walk with that level of humility, to know that he's going to build something that he's been planting seeds that he'll never see fruit from. That's hard to do because he's already lived his whole life bone marrow dry for a game that a lot of people would have walked away from.
So let me ask
So
you this question.
all I'm saying is that the context of the conversation needs to be adjusted so that we kind of have some empathy for him, because I think it's a hard thing that he might be the only person ever that would have done it the way he did it and
I
gotten
think
to this point to have this.
you can have empathy for somebody while also not giving them a pass for the decisions that they're making.
I could agree with you that it's a dumb thing to go about it the way he's going. I can agree with you on paper because it is, but just understanding the other side of it, I think, is important when we.
Well, I think at the end of the day, there is no correct and this isn't binary, right? Like you said, there's a lot of nuance to this, and ultimately comes down to like I still have a lot of sympathy for the dude. I have a lot of empathy. I think he's a living legend. I think he's one of the best to ever touch a pool cue. And all of that taken into account, I can still look at all the things that he's done to sabotage this industry. And the way that I look at it is he still is working towards squeezing dry every single penny that he can get out of this industry on his way out.
Yeah, 100%. Why wouldn't he though?
Yeah, Earl
Because
to me.
At this point in his career, he could be the Earl Strickland
You're
right now.
You're supposed to try and make as much as you can along the way.
Sure, but at some point in time, it becomes about legacy, right? And at the end of the day, like Jerry West is one of the greatest players to ever play in the NBA ever. Not because of what he did on the court, but because he's done what he's done ever since then. Like he's done more post his career than he's ever done in his career, and that's part of what he's going to be known for. That's why he was the emblem. That's why he was the logo. I mean, he's one of the greatest to ever do it as a player, as a manager, as a coach, as everything taken into account.
He's amazing.
Just because your career is over or near over doesn't mean that your legacy should stop and you should start cashing in on everything that you do. Earl Strickland could now transition into a legend of the game where he's on the forefront, moving the game forward, doing everything.
Jerry's still getting a check. Jerry's still getting a check from the NBA, by the way, and he's doing just fine financially.
But he's also getting a check because of the work that he did to promote that game, right?
Oh,
When Jerry West started his career, he was making peanuts. And now he's making millions and millions of dollars a year, partially, hugely, because of the contributions that he's done along the way, both during his career and past his career.
Yeah, but there's a magnitude.
Why can't Earl Strickland do that?
Well, there's a magnitude of financial difference between the NBA and
of course,
whatever Pro Pool has.
But what I'm saying is, at the time, there was a huge difference, but there was a difference, but there wasn't a huge difference in the '60s. I think Jerry West played in the '60s, if I'm not mistaken, a little before my time. But they weren't making millions of dollars; they were making
not before my time.
Low hundreds of thousands.
Rob, what
Earl,
did you want to say?
I got to say something about Earl. To me, he is absolutely the epitome of a transformational player. That is a player who, when you put a stick in his hand, he transforms into an animal. Period. There's no question about it. I've talked with Earl at length, just him and I, private conversation. And I noticed one thing. You are not the same human being that's on that pool table, Earl. What's the difference? And if you know some amateur, there's another amateur pool player in the United States that I could put on that same level, maybe not talent-wise, but the transformational player where they're a normal human being. You put a pool cue in their hand, and they change. Yeah. They change into somebody that is now willing and able to go beyond themselves and become involved in that game to the maximum amount. And that's Jesse Bowman. If you've ever heard of him, player from Iowa, an amateur player. I saw the same thing that Earl has in this player, Jesse Bowman, when I played him one time. And when I was done, I went, wow, you remind me of Earl, Jesse, And because he was just a different human being when he's on the table, and a player that's willing to do anything on the table to win, go to any extreme, any level. And boy, I give him a lot of credit for that. And yeah, he takes some heat. I've seen him do things on a pool table that I swear I would say should be illegal.
Yeah. No, I mean, Earl's obviously he's like a generational talent, right? He's one of those guys that changes the what's expected on, from the top players. Nobody jumped the ball before Earl, right? And then he's playing Mizrak in a big finals of a big tournament, gets televised, and he jumps the ball. Whoa, what's going on here? Like now, like who does that, right?
Well, bringing this back to my Jerry West analogy, because I think it's important. Jerry West made the average NBA player in the '60s made $15,000. That was less than a pool player in the '60s, probably.
Yeah, and the NBA was on the verge of dying if it wasn't for Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. And then Michael Jordan turned the NBA into international because of marketing.
Why can't Earl Strickland be Michael Jordan?
Well, because we don't have tens of millions of people watching the finals of the U.S. Open, and it's not being broadcast on national television, and they're not sharing stories about these people that make it compelling. We know the stories because we're involved. We're in the blood of it, But the average have the millions of dollars in media marketing that's necessary to make things like the I want to be like Mike commercials, like forget it. You know what I mean? We don't have that yet. So until that starts happening, we're not going to see a scale of financial growth that allows somebody like Jerry West to continue to like pour in, and be attached to it because he's taken care of. Earl's trying to figure out where does Earl live? Have you asked yourself that question? We don't know, right? I mean, you're having stress issues with personal stuff at home. Like, imagine this guy. He's bouncing around the country, from pool room to pool room. So it's unfortunate we have a generation of people that are gonna fade away from us soon that don't have any of that being provided to them by the sport.
Sure.
That's always the peril that we face, right? Like the advice that I got was go get a job, go get a career in order, take care of those things. Pool's always going to be here, and then you can come back and you can play the game and enjoy it. Whereas if I would have gone from 22 to now and chased that dream, you know what I mean? Like maybe I'm not setting myself up financially the way I could have, but maybe, but I was advised to do a certain thing, and then I went and did that thing, and that's still painful. But Earl was like, I'm going to go play. And that I think no matter what we get from him, because he's an enigma and he's a challenging person to like sometimes.
He's an absolute legend.
Yeah, like it's hard to do that. Like I've seen players here in Florida that I grew up with that dedicated their whole lives to the game, and nobody outside of, hardcore pool fanatics knows about people like Monster John. Monster John was, backroom one pocket legend and one of the best bankers ever, one of the best one pocket players of all time. And the guys that are really, really in the know have a lot of respect for that dude. He gave his whole life to the game until he had a health situation take him, but before that situation took him table. So, it's tough action. It's tough action to go through that.
I'm not disagreeing.
And then
just like it was tough action for everybody in every sport that when they were putting in the work and the effort.
I look at stuff like tennis and the NBA and golf and stuff that used to not have a ton of financial backing, and now it does. And I think there's an avenue there that we can learn from and model as an industry, and kind of create something that does allow us to, have actual careers attached to the competitive side of the game and to the managerial side of the game and the coaching side of the game and the training side and all this other stuff, and then go back and take care of our guys like that are ill now, like Danny DiLiberto and our champs that have Billy and Cardona, you know what I mean? Mark Griffin just passed away. Like we have guys that dedicated their whole lives to the
Willie
sport.
Munson in Wisconsin.
Yeah, there's all these players that Danny D is not long for us, and Billy and Cardona is getting very long on the tooth. and we have guys that are still like Mark Wilson, but
We had a scare
you
with
know.
Buddy Hall, right?
Buddy
I mean,
Hall as well. But I mean, Buddy Hall is one of the remnants. Like, imagine why are we not as an industry in a place to better take care of these guys? You know, so how
well,
if we
this
don't
goes
have
into my argument. But
no,
this is
I
exactly what
I
I'm saying.
agree.
There's-
I agree that
partially it's
him going
because it
on.
was sabotaged
Well, no,
by the person in talking, right?
well, I don't know if Joe Rogan's going to save Poole. You know,
No.
I don't think.
And
I'm not going to give him the Christ flag for that. You know, and like,
and I don't know that he will either. And that's why I
right,
didn't
but
even put that into my argument when I said it earlier.
I do know that Joe Rogan has contacts and a platform and an interest in something that's that's close to all of us. So I think that is worth a lot. And he's already shared interest that he's going to continue to do podcasts and to use his platform for something that he's really into. He really loves pool, and he's got the itch again. And Richard Sue just made him some shafts, and and he's got to go on the Southwest, and he digs it. He just got to play pool with Christina and with Federer, and like he's doing his thing, and that's going to be positive. I think us doing our thing is positive. More people coming out and doing more things is going to be positive, and that's just going to continue to build and build and build until we get a threshold.
Just talking about it.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. And just
I think
talking
at the
about it
end-
is a big thing.
I think at the end of the day that the industry is leaving behind people who can't get out of the way, and I think that's a really good thing. At the end of the day, like there's a lot of people, how many names when you come around Moscone Cup time are still, where's Mike DeShane at? Where's Justin Bergman at? And those are completely different examples. So I'm not trying to clump those into one thing. What I'm saying is there are a lot of players that are not, if they're not interested in jumping on board with the train that's moving, they're going to get left behind. And Earl Strickland, I don't want to see Earl Strickland being one of those people, because at the end of the day, I think that if there is nobody in the world probably at this point, maybe short of like the obvious ones like Emily Frazier, and all of Matchroom really, and Karim with Predator, that has more impact and more reach than Earl Strickland. If he put his head down and just said, all right, this is it. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to transition from being a player, or I'm still going to be a player, and I'm going to dedicate my life to helping to grow this game. You're telling me right now that you couldn't find, he wouldn't be able to find 7, 8, 9, 10 sponsors that would pay him $10,000 a year just to promote their brand while he does work to grow the game and highlight different aspects. I mean, the dude has a platform that if he focused it and used it for good,
well, I agree.
The dude would have an amazing impact on this game, and he would be an
I think
absolute
Earl's
legend. His entire legacy would be altered from being the caricature that we know Earl to being one of the biggest legends of the game. The game has
That's a
ever
good
known.
point.
I think
Well,
Earl's approach to how to go about that might look different than yours.
Oh yeah.
But I think Earl genuinely believes that when he goes and does these clinics, like he's in Florida now,
right,
and he's here all week, going to a bunch of different pool rooms and having exhibitions and doing in-person stuff with people up close. I think he believes he is doing that, and his business model is based on that. I'm going to go from town to town, like it's always been his whole life. I'm going to go town to town, put on a show, I'm going to collect a check, and I'm going to move on and go to my next town. But
he came to Appleton last year and did one of these things with Johnny Archer. So he did one of these things. He was up here for 4 days at the Mad Apple in Appleton. So shout out to the Mad Apple. Kendall's doing great stuff there, bringing a lot of top players in. And he literally was fighting with people in the front row while he's playing this exhibition match with Johnny Archer. He's fighting with people and yelling at them. I mean, it's an exhibition match. They're playing a race at 30. And he's sitting there yelling at people, not even playing the match. Like he'll take 3 minutes and he'll just sit there and yell at people that are heckling him. And they weren't actually, to begin with, from what I saw, they weren't heckling him. He was up like 23-7 or no, he was down like 23-7 or something crazy like that. He ended up winning the match. He ended up coming back and winning the match, but like 30-27. But like he's losing, and then he just starts attacking people basically in the crowd. And you can't tell me that what he's doing. I mean, I'm
not going to sit here and untangle the forest of Lord knows what that's in Earl's head. All I'm saying is that, those situations come up with Earl a lot, and we know that. So it's not like this is like a la carte, like, oh, we just ordered eggs and we got like some caviar or something. Like that's not what's
Total doesn't.
happening here,
Earl doesn't think about.
So like you order chicken
circumstances.
tenders.
He's in the moment.
No,
always.
yeah, he's always right now, right? And so he's
not.
one of those few guys that actually, like, his peak game is triggered by the confrontation stuff. Like, he's weird. Like, not everybody does that, And
at the end of the day, just to address the comment,
I have the strongest.
I would never pay $10,000 to Earl because I don't think he's going to represent my brand.
Of course not. That's why other people don't do that.
There's a reason that he doesn't have any sponsors at this point.
He needs his own. He needs his own brand. He needs his own stuff.
Yeah, he is his own
chart. Right. He is his own brand. Now he needs to digitize that and then go on Rogan, get a little plug, play some pool, and maybe somebody outside will be like, man, that's a really interesting character, really funny guy. Maybe I can, check this stuff out. It's really, that's why, like, when people were talking about the Federer Rogan podcast, like Mark White was going off about how it's so negative for the game and it really portrays a negative part of the game because they spent some time talking about the drugs and all this other stuff, right? But I'm like, well, before that moment, Rogan name dropped like Tar, Richard Sue, he name dropped Southwest Q's, he name dropped Matchroom Pool, he name dropped a lot of like things that are part of the pool subculture that a layman would be like, what's that? Google search. Oh, Matchroom Pool. This is cool. Oh, what? Wow, Mosconi Cup. That's amazing.
Cue it up podcast. How neat is that?
Yeah.
A number of things. He mentioned podcasters. He mentioned a few different he gave little avenue branches to people to get hooks into the world, And then he played off this caricature that people have because of the color of money and all this other whatever idea, and that's okay too. And what I said was like, look, good publicity and bad publicity. They're good publicity. You know what I mean? People are hearing about this thing now, and we're getting more. We're getting the ESPN 30 for 30, the 60 Minutes, the Mosconi Cup, like a lot of stuff happening. This is great. Joe Rogan podcast, like 2022 finished strong for pool,
Good stuff,
And so, yeah, there was some negative stuff there, stuff that is probably people, I would have preferred not, focusing on and, better talking about people, whatever. Like, talk about the kid's journey. You know what I mean? Talk about the Russian ban and how it messed with him and how he, still was able to still be successful and like.
That is honestly something I would have loved to hear more about, like the way that. But I'm sure Fedor probably has family left in Russian. You just can't do that. So I'm sure he probably made a request because there's a lot of stories of like Russian.
Yeah, potentially
Russian people that left the country and then they'll talk bad about the government.
It's bad.
And then they go and attack their family or something like that, or lock up. Yeah,
it's a valid deal, especially because his podcast is so big. It's not like it's the KGB is not going to not see it. So it's like they'll find out, pal. Funny. Trust me, you'll get a knock on your hotel room door. Yeah. Oleg wants to talk.
But I guess we've kind of beat this on. I wish the best for Earl, and to be honest with you, I wish him all of the power to be able to get over everything that's all the demons of battle. At the end of the day, I would love nothing more than to see, as somebody who promotes the game and tries. You can argue whether or not we do optimize stuff here at the Cue It Up Network, but what we do is we try to project what we want to see in the pool world, and we try to help grow the game in any way that we can. You can ask basically just about anybody out there as far as like the big names. We try to help out people as much as we possibly can. We don't even charge either. Like when we go and if we go and cover an event, honestly, we're not charging a lot of these smaller things. What we do is we try to grow the game in any way that we can. I hope that Earl finds a way at the tail end, at the twilight of his career, to find the mental fortitude to find a purpose while still existing in the pool community and helping it grow. I hope that.
Yeah, and maybe he doesn't even need to do that so much. Maybe us talking about him helps that to that end a lot more. Maybe his clinics and stuff like that. Maybe that'll be beneficial for him, or just having more platforms come up and bring Earl on, have interviews with him, have him share his thoughts. I think as far as him wanting to make money, I think we should all be looking for a way to make money and grow, because how can we give if we don't have, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think demonizing his pursuit for a little coin is or just sponsors or viewership or anything like that. Like, we want our stuff too, whether he goes about out of the most. That's up to him. But ultimately, going to draw people to an online platform that Earl has is going to be online content that Earl creates. So unless he starts putting a camera in front of himself in the morning while he's doing his 500 sit-ups and just starts recording himself like how David Goggins does, I think that would be fantastic for Earl. If Earl just sat there and recorded himself like doing his 500 sit-ups and just berating people about how, this guy back then needed the 7-ball and it's not even close, or like, whatever. Like whatever his thoughts are, he should just put that in front of people online, and that would be like hilarious, and would add a ton of value, and he'd get a bunch of followers, and that would be like he'd get that overnight. If he did that on TikTok, holy cow, people would be like, "Who the hell is this crazy old codger?" And holy crap, he can freaking play pool like God. Congratulations! Like I'll follow this guy today. He'd have 1 million followers tomorrow if he started doing this stuff on TikTok, but he's got to break that little technology barrier because, he's from a different world. He really is from a different world. So it's really kind of two worlds colliding. And I think eventually he'll probably get on. I would hope he does it rather because somebody's going to talk some sense into him and be like, hey, man, if you go on Rogan, you'll have 1 million subscribers tomorrow. Like just open a page on Instagram and Twitter or whatever, whatever, pick one and just start, just create a page and then go on Rogan and people will follow you like no problem. He's got a Facebook page. Just in the morning when you go on your runs, like you got to be an athlete. You're gonna have to be a killer. You got to be in shape to win, big pro events. Running's hard, pool's harder, whatever, just go on and just do your thing, be your persona. You don't even have to be like super kind. But if you share some gems along the way, a little nuggets. Oh, this is what I learned from this situation. This is why you shoot this ball. Like little things like that will be far more reaching.
A ton of gems.
Oh my God! Just go out there and just say, whenever I'm in this spot, I shoot the ball like this, and this is why. And you just take it for what it is. You know what I mean? And people would love that, eat it up, share it. Like, but he's not hip to that game because again, he's a fossil. So it's like, we got to get him up to speed. Give him the camera. He's got a camera. He's got he's off the cuff all the time. So it's not hard for him to do that. So just press record, bud. Just whatever you're doing. What are you doing? Oh, I'm eating I'm eating eggs and raw chicken livers. Why? Well, because, I read it, makes me feel good.
Better for your eyes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, whatever. And then people will not only copy the long queue, they'll start eating chicken livers and doing 500 sit-ups. Yeah. And pool players will become athletes.
They'll put weights on one side of their head so that perfect eye can be on the shot.
Pearls of wisdom. See, Ed Ladawi's on top of it. He goes, yeah, call it pearls of wisdom. Little 1-minute segments or reels or shorts.
Yeah,
pearls of wisdom. Perfect.
Love it.
That's it. Done. I'm sending Earl my invoice in the mail.
Right there you go.
Guy.
Well,
you're making an IOU back.
That's right.
I guess at this point we're probably pretty good. I got to go put out some fires, so that's where I'm at with
you
my
should not
life.
set your house ablaze anymore.
Find a home.
Yeah, exactly.
And I hope your balls are better.
Jesus.
I have no comment.
Rob. You probably don't want to. All right. I do want to give a shout out to Mason Cook. He got third last week at the
Music City.
At the Music City Classic. So that's pretty
a good
awesome.
Win. Yeah,
shout out to you. That's
undefeated,
huge.
Final Four undefeated, I think, right? Or final.
No, he played for the chair. He lost. He lost the match.
Okay.
Yeah. He played for the Hill match.
Good for Mason.
He had Mickey Krause down 10-0.
Jesus Christ.
According to what I saw on Facebook, he had him down 10-0. He only ended up winning the match 11-9. Yeah, the bar table 9 ball.
Bar table? Yeah.
He only ended up winning 11-9. So Mickey Krause ended up winning 9 straight on him. But after losing 9 straight, to be able to have the goof to get that last win, that's tough.
Well, so, I've had some bar table matches down here in Florida where I've put a 6 on somebody and they put a 5 back on me, and it's just like it's nuts. A lot of heat. So good
Tommy
for him.
Kennedy still play?
Oh yeah, he's grinding. He's grinding for sure. He'll be up in Jacksonville this weekend for a little tournament.
Okay.
Yeah. So all right, let's leave it there. And thank you, Ray and Rob, for joining today, as well as Chris and Demetrius, who had to leave a little bit earlier.
See you, boss.
Yeah, and I guess like Ed said, the next time that we shoot a podcast, I believe we're going to have a women's 9-ball, a new world women's 9-ball champion, or the women's 9-ball, right? So that'll be cool. We'll have that to talk about next week.
Atlantic City, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
See you, Raymond.
I guess see everybody next week. Thanks for tuning in.
See you,
All right,
Nate.
kids. Brush your